Warning, the following podcast contains spoilers for Fazbear Frights books. If you do not want to hear them, I suggest just not listening or getting the book yourself, whatever. Otherwise, minor language warning, and yeah, that's about it. Enjoy. Hello. Okay, I don't know exactly what to say. I am the Reaper, and today we'll be going over the CLIFFS and a full-on review of it. I've been waiting to do this ever since I got the book on Tuesday, and it's going to be really fun. Just going to be me commentating on the book. So, I figure, why not hop right into this? The CLIFFS is Fazbear Frights, Five Nights at Freddy's, numeral 7 by Scott Cawthon, Ellie Cooper, and Andrea Wagner. There are 3 stories in here, which is the CLIFFS, the Breaking Wheel, and He Told Me Everything. I'll be going over them one by one. We're going to have some laughs as I try to explain it in the most goofy but funny way possible. Otherwise, this is going to be really fun. And yeah. So, let us not waste any time and hop right into this. Of course, the first story is The CLIFFS, and we're going to go over main characters and such. Got the book right here. So let's look right into this. I keep saying that. Oh, maybe I'm just nervous. Okay. So, our main character is Robert. And Robert is the single father in the story. And he has his lovely son, Tyler, who is currently 2 years old. And we start off the story by him just, eating stuff. What a toddler does. He just devours plushies for a living. No, he's devouring Cheerios. How'd they even get the Cheerios license? That's pretty good, Scott. Good job. Basically, it's just kind of, basic stuff. Then he goes on to talk about Anna and finding the right one. Yeah, I found the right one. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. So, Anna. Oh, God, I'm going to drive myself to insanity. Okay, so he meets Anna. And Anna and him met in college. Yes, junior year of college. Then they started dating. And yeah, but Anna ended up dying during childbirth. They moved to the CLIFFS before her death, obviously. But she died during childbirth. Very sad. She had the cesarean yeah. It's a Caesar section. The Caesar section. Why does that sound like something, part of a store or something, the Caesar section? Okay, moving on. Now, I told you this is going to be a lot of interesting stuff. Okay. So, he's taking care of the baby and stuff over the years. Well, over the first year. He says this very interesting line. In his exhausted, grief-stricken state, there were only 2 facts Robert knew for sure. He was all that Tyler had, and he was not enough. That's very sad. Basically, what he's just going over the next couple of pages and stuff is that, he's kind of just muddling through life. He gets up, he takes care of the kid, he brings up the daycare, he goes to work, he has a sad sandwich, he gets out of work, he takes care of the kid. Very, very sad. Just, sad. He ends up meeting Jess at work, because Jess ends up having a conversation with him. And, yeah. Basically, it just kind of goes with Jess saying, I see you eat these sad little sandwiches all the time. And it'd be nice if you just went out for once, enjoyed life. And Jess is like, it would be very, very nice for you to come with us. And he's like, okay, maybe. And then she's like, no, definitely. Next week, you're not getting out of it. I was just like, oh no, she's got you now. Very, very interesting. And it's at a sushi place, too. She says this line, "It's not an invitation," Jess called behind him. "It's mandatory. Mandatory sushi, which would be a great name for a band, by the way." Mandatory sushi the band. I can totally see that. Just some Japanese van? No. Why a Japanese van? Why did I say van? Not a band. Oh god, the comments are gonna kill me. It's a Japanese van. Oh my god. Okay. Basically, treadmill, kind of regular stuff. And then we're gonna go to a daycare scene where Miss Lauren, those really happy teachers that love playing with the kids and stuff at daycares and such, So she's there, and she talks to Robert, and Robert ends up talking back to her. And she says, he was a happy boy for most of today, though there is one little thing I should tell you. And Robert's like, oh god, what is it gonna be? I don't know. And Miss Lauren's like, oh, don't worry. He didn't attack anybody or something. And then Robert's like, oh, thank god. Yes, it is. The kid is the bite of 87. Confirmed. This is exactly what we need to complete the lore. Don't listen to anything I say. Okay, so Miss Lauren goes on to say, it was just that today I asked the kids to draw pictures of their families and talk about them. Being two, most of them drew blobs of scribbles, blah blah blah. Tyler's friend Noah noticed Tyler didn't have a mom in his picture and asked him about it. Tyler got a little upset, I think mostly because someone pointed out his family was different. And Robert starts feeling upset because Tyler's being singled out because he has a different family. And basically it just kind of goes on from there. The teacher just turns into a teachable moment that families can look like anything. Aw, how kind and sweet. Nice to show that the world is an equal place. Sometimes. And he ends up taking him to the store afterwards, which is where this gets fun. It's fun for Freddy. So, Tyler owned one t-shirt with Freddy Fazbear on it, but Robert had never thought of his son as a Freddy fanatic. He was too little for one thing. As he pushed Tyler in the shopping cart past the toy aisles, though, Tyler pointed his index finger and yelled, Freddy! At the top of his tiny lungs. So, yep, he's a Freddy. A Freddy. So, he ends up picking it up. It is called a Tag-Along Freddy. And it appears that Tyler must have gotten it from a TV commercial. Those dang commercials always spreading there. Oh no, I can't say that. So it was spreading their ads, and then I thought AIDS, and I was like, oh no, why is it doing this to me today? Okay, that's probably, you just gotta think past that, gotta move on. So he picks up the Freddy and gives it to him, and then Tyler's like, yes, it is mine. And then Robert's like, whoa, this thing is expensive, but comes with a wrist watch and everything. He's like, oh, I don't know if I should get it. And then Tyler says, wov. Oh, he woves it. And Robert says, it was hard to argue with wov. It is hard to argue with wov. Let's read the description of Tag-Along Freddy, shall we? Tag-Along Freddy is a kid's and parents' best pal. Freddy goes where your little one goes, and sends you live updates on your tag-along time wristwatch included, so you know your little one is happy and safe. You may have to be out of sight sometimes, but Tag-Along Freddy is the bear who is always there. He's here, he's there, he's everywhere. Who you gonna call? Psychic friend Fredbear. Or, who you gonna call? Tag-Along Freddy. Yeah, that makes sense. That's better. You get the point. I don't know, I'm blathering on. Okay, move on from there. He takes him to school. Well, technically daycare the next day. And, Freddy ends up coming with him, and the teacher allows it because, it's a bear. I mean, it makes plenty of sense and such. He ends up getting it working, too. So basically, the Freddy kind of just sits there, sends messages and stuff, like, it's all good, I'm playing with my best buddy. Can I do that in a Freddy voice? It's all good, I'm playing with my best buddy. That's pretty good, I like that voice. So, he has to save Freddy from spaghetti, things like that. And they make this. He makes this really stupid, funny kitty thing, which is just hilarious. Freddy Sketty. He's ready for Freddy Sketty. It's so stupid, but it's hilarious. So, going on from there, I know I'm gonna keep repeating lines and stuff. Freddy basically says, "He's fast asleep." And then Robert's like, "Nice." He doesn't say nice, but he says nice. So, the story's got a very nice undergraduate tone to it, He basically goes on to say later on that it's a pretty mutual relationship, He saves Freddy from getting dirty, like by the sandbox or water, by food, anything like that, and Freddy sends him live updates. So, while Tyler's playing in the sandbox, he heads inside for a moment because he gets a phone call. Then, he walks back outside, and Tyler's gone. He has no idea where he went. And he's looking around, and there was a white van that drives up. Oh no, it must have free candy. Stop it, that's wrong. Okay, continuing on from there. And tag along Freddy's my spring lock just went off. The wristwatch says, "Gone. She's gone." I'm going to keep doing that Freddy voice from now on, just because I want to. So, he gets upset. He starts looking around. The gate is open. He's like, Tyler, where are you? Tyler, please. He can't find him. He calls the police. And basically, he just goes over with the police, how the gate was open, how there was a van around. He's just thinking to the officer. Kind of the basic things. And then, of course, Freddy sends a text later on at like 5, and he says, "Why don't you go to the CLIFFS?" And then Robert's like, I don't, what? And then he slowly starts thinking about Tyler and Anna, and he starts falling into a depression. But it's like, no. The bear is just doing something, it's blah, So basically, he grabs it, holding it between his thumb and forefinger, as if it were a dead rat. He carried it outside, lifted the lid on the garbage can, and dumped it inside. Great job, get rid of your problems. That's how I do things. So Robert doesn't really know what to do. He gets on another call with the policewoman, Detective Ramirez. Then he gets another text later on, "Why don't you go to the CLIFFS?" And then Robert says, he technically thinks, maybe it wasn't so crazy the bear was judging him after all. Maybe it was urging him to commit suicide. Well, he wasn't going to have it. He stomped outside to the garbage can where he had dumped the thing. He brought the bear back into the house. Somehow, it made him less nervous to have the thing where he could see it. He hoped he wasn't losing his mind. He was under an unthinkable amount of stress, of course, but he needed to keep it together for Tyler. He set the bear down on the bed. Looking at it, he felt such a surge of hate for the toy, and his stomach roiled. And then he went to retch into the toilet, aka puke into the toilet, for anybody who's less mature than the writer of the story, which is pretty much all of us. And just scanning through this, I thought yes, he does. Okay. Robert grabbed the tag-along Freddy by its ear and carried it downstairs. He went into the kitchen and retrieved a box of matches he kept on a high shelf in the cabinet, out of Tyler's reach. He carried Freddy outside to the trash can and threw him back in. He struck a match and held it to the bear, waiting for it to catch fire. The bear's foot smoldered a little bit, but refused to burst into flames. It was probably treated with some chemical, Robert thought, to make it flame retardant, a safety feature. Well, we'd put a stop to that. He grabbed the bottle of lighter fluid he kept near the grill. Robert doused the bear with lighter fluid, and he struck another match and threw it into the garbage can. Tag-along Freddy went up with a satisfying whoosh of flames. He watched it burn, and then he put it out just to make sure the house didn't turn on fire. Wow, wasn't that exciting? So thrilling. Unfortunately, the last, 7 minutes of the audio recording, of course, just had to get cut. So now I have to go back and re-record. That's what happens when you try to find out how to get rid of background audio. So, now you're stuck with this. But I hope you still enjoy the rest of this book, because I'm going to enjoy it with you. Continuing on from where we last off, and if you hear the background crinkling of the book, I'm sorry. Okay, here we go. So, he put out the bear, then he decides to throw it back in, the trash can, and try not to let the house burn down on fire. So, he walks back inside. He thinks he just has destroyed the bear, when he gets another message from it reading, "Why don't you go to the cliffs?" And he's like, "No!" Robert yelled, clapping his hands over his ears. "No, this is impossible. The bear is practically just ashes now. It can't still be telling me to kill myself. It can't be telling me anything." He goes back outside, lifts up the garbage can. He gets so angry with it that he takes it and he grabs his car keys. Yep, you know what's going to happen. He throws it on the ground. He runs over it with his car, then goes backwards. The interesting thing is that there's a slight resistance when he tries to go over it the first time. Only slight. I don't know if that's important at all, but just figure I noticed that. And he basically turns it into the Freddy Furry Pancake. The Freddy Furry Pancake. There you go. So, he hears his phone ring when he heads back inside. It's Detective Ramirez. Basically just going on about, getting a scent for one of the dogs and stuff, and, saying that she'll pray for him, things like that. And then he gets another message saying, "Why don't you go to the cliffs?" So, Robert's now feeling broken. He's like, "No, why is this bear doing it to me? What did I do wrong?" Apparently the bear thinks everything. No, just listen to the bear, Robert. Come on. The bear obviously just wants to help you in some way. And then he begins thinking about, because he thinks it's suicide, so he begins thinking about it. The more the bear told him to go to the cliffs, the more suicide seemed like a welcome relief from his pain. Sure, it would be terrifying, standing on the edge looking down at the ragged rocks below, and willing himself to jump, but the fall would be so fast he wouldn't have time to think or feel anything. And the force with which he'd smash into the rocks would be so hard, he would die instantly. Even if there was some physical pain, it would still hurt less than the emotional pain that was ripping him apart. Without Anna and Tyler, what reason did he have to live? Very good point. If he went to the cliffs, he could join Anna in death. Maybe there was a possibility that he would see her again on some other spiritual plane. And of course, it was possible that Tyler was also. The thought was so horrifying that it sent Robert running back to the bathroom to retch out the non-existent contents of his stomach. So, Robert thinks about it, and then he's like, "No, I can't do this." He begins thinking about Tyler's birthday, stuff like that. Not really interesting things. He ends up going and taking a shower, realizing how bad he looks. And then he takes the tag-along Freddy back out from the trash can, brings him inside, and begins taking, I believe a knife. Yes, a knife, and stabbing him a bunch of times. And he says, "Why won't you just die? You're not even supposed to be alive." So, he gets another message from his wristwatch, and he's like, "Oh no, what is this?" And he goes, What if it's news about Tyler? What if I can save him?" And instead it says, "Why don't you go to the cliffs? Why don't you go to the cliffs? Why don't you go to the cliffs? Why don't..." And Robert rips off the watch and throws it against the pavement and smashes it. And then he takes the bear and he says, "Fine, we'll go to the cliffs together." He picks up the bear. I just said he picks up. Apparently, he picks up two bears. Apparently, there's two bears in the story. There's definitely two bears. It's just a Care Bear. This is what it is. Fan theory right now. He's just a Care Bear, except brown. Is there a brown Care Bear? I'm not gonna look that up. Ay. So he fills the cat's food bowl a lot, just in case, So when the cat ends up, when he ends up jumping off the cliff, he has plenty of food to eat and stuff. Yes, there's a cat in the story. I'm sorry I didn't mention it. He wasn't really important to the plot. I know. So sad. But he's really not important to the plot. He's just Anna's cat that's still there. He thinks about leaving a note. He decides not to. Leaves the front door unlocked. He walks out. He runs into one of the nosy neighbors about, what exactly is going on with his son and stuff. And he's like, yeah. Like that. So, Robert begins running towards where the cliffs is. The cliff's name is Jumper's Cliff, because, duh. He goes to the summit, and he begins to look down below. And he says to the bear, "This is what you want, right?" He begins to cry and stuff, and it goes over basically everything that's happened between him and Anna, and how we lost Tyler, and he feels so bad about it, and he hears Tyler's words saying, "Pick me up, Daddy," or "Daddy's silly," things like that. And then, this is what happens next. Robert held up the despised bear and stared into its empty eyes. He drew back his arm and pitched the doll as hard as he could over the edge of the cliff. He spat over the ledge in defiance of what the evil toy had almost made him do, of what he had almost let the toy make him do. "Tyler wouldn't want me to," Robert screamed after the bear plummeted to the rocks below. His voice echoed, two, in the canyon. The sun begins to come up after that long day, and then he begins to hear some noises coming from the cliffs, whines and such. He listens more and more, and then realizes it sounds like cries. They sound like human cries. He begins to make his way down the cliff face. Yes, there's like a pathway and stuff, natural formations, things like that. And he yells, Tyler, is that you?" "Daddy!" Tyler's voice, weak from crying, came from the hole nearest Robert. Daddy, come get me." And so he goes to rescue his son. And his son ends up responding with this after coming out of the hole. "I saw a doggy," Tyler said like it was the most logical answer in the world. "So you tried to follow the doggy and got lost?" "Uh-huh." Tyler rested his head on Robert's shoulder. "Well, that was really dangerous, buddy. You should never leave the yard unless I'm with you. Promise me you'll never do that again." "Okay, Daddy," Tyler said. Robert hoped he meant it. "Good, let's go home." "Yeah, carry me," Tyler said, and Robert could hear the tiredness in his voice. "Okay, buddy." Robert was tired too, but now that he found his son, he felt like he had the strength to carry him for 1,000,000 miles. They begin to walk away. He talks about having a peanut nana. So, a peanut butter banana, apparently. That might actually taste good. Actually, it probably tastes good. And Robert ends up realizing something. He goes, "Hang on just a second, buddy. I want to see something." Without getting too close to the edge, Robert peered down in the direction and where he'd thrown the tag-along Freddy. The little bear was nowhere to be seen. "What you see, Daddy?" Tyler asked. "Nothing, buddy. But look how pretty the sky is. Your mom used to have a dress the color of those clouds." He decided he would no longer keep silent about Anna. Tyler needed to hear about his mom, just as Robert needed to talk about her. If they thought about her, there was a way in which she would still be with them. "Mommy pretty," Tyler said. "Yes, she was. Would you like to look at some pictures of your mommy sometime?" "Yeah," Tyler said. Tomorrow, Robert decided. He would take the photos of Anna down from the attic. He could put some on the mantle in the living room, and maybe one in Tyler's room too. "We'll do that tomorrow then," Robert said. "And I can tell you some stories about her, too. Your mommy's very pretty, and smart, and nice." Daddy's nice too, Tyler said. It was a high compliment from a 2-year-old. Thanks, buddy. I love you, Robert said, holding Tyler securely as he walked farther and farther away from the cliffs. I love you, Daddy. I love you too, buddy. Robert set Tyler down on the ground. Tyler slipped his hand into Daddy's, and they walked together toward home. Ah, such a lovely story. And, hate to say it, but that's going to be the best ending out of the 3 of these stories. So, tomorrow I will give you The Breaking Wheel, and then the next day will be He Told Me Everything, piece by piece, and then also I haven't decided what I want to do with the Stitch Race stories yet. I'll probably come back and do the Stitch Race stories in a completely separate thing, or just do them after I finish each book just to make it fair, but we'll see. That was the Cliffs, and I'll be back tomorrow. Thank you all, and have a great day.